What's up, you guys? It's Sarah at Carnivore.yogi on Instagram. Thank you so much for coming on to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave me a comment if you want to support the channel. So, I am doing an interview in this episode with a wonderful person. His name is Mike. You can follow him on Instagram as at Carnivore Mike Foxtrot. I'm going to link that below. I'm also linking his website. He is selling t-shirts, but it is not for his own personal profit. It is actually to support our veterans who have traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress disorder, as he experienced being a man of service in this country. So I think this is a very important topic that we're going to talk about. It can be sensitive for those of you who experience post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. I really do recommend that you get help with that. You know, I believe that the carnivore diet, as we talk about in this episode, is very powerful to help you, to support your brain, to support your body and your health. However, I do recommend that if you are struggling, that you don't do this alone. I have a resource and a link that I will also place before this video for betterhelp.com. They are one of my sponsors and help to make this channel possible. So if you click on the link below this video for BetterHelp, it is for online therapy, online counseling. You can do this in many different ways. You can do it via text, you can do it via video chat, you can do it just typing. You don't have to necessarily see someone face to face, but that option is there if you would like it. So the link below the video for BetterHelp will give you 10% off of a month with BetterHelp. So if you are struggling, if you have depression, anxiety, and any of these things, I do believe the carnivore diet, as Mike and I do discuss in this video, is excellent, but don't do it alone. Don't suffer through those feelings, through that pain alone. Do get some help, do talk. And again, please support Mike in his mission to support these veterans with traumatic brain injuries and PTSD. We will talk about that in this video, but all you have to do to support his mission is to buy one of his shirts, which he was so kind to send me. They're pretty cool. So you guys enjoy this episode, and I hope you have a really wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. It's Sarah at carnivore.yogi, and thank you so much for coming on with me. I have a really awesome guest today. His name is Mike, and he's on Instagram. Is it at Carnivore Mike Foxtrot? Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. Carnivore Mike Foxtrot. Yep.
He was kind enough to actually send me one of the shirts that he's wearing in a tank top. Right. I have been loving and working out in. But he has a really, really amazing and inspirational story that I think needs to be talked about, needs to be put out there and shared. Mike, thank you so much for agreeing to come and chat with me today. I know you're a busy
thanks
guy.
for having me.
Told me you have 6 children and 3 dogs.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Woo! That's a busy person.
Yes, it's crazy. Chaos. We call it chaos.
Yeah, a happy chaos, I'm hoping.
Yes. Yes. Well, sometimes not. Sometimes it's disastrous chaos, but it's fun. It's fun.
Of children, right. I think just right. We want to try to control them, but you know, they have their own ideas.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about your story and
sure.
Start where you feel comfortable of kind of how you decided to get into carnivore, what led you to it.
Sure.
Let's just jump right in there.
Okay, awesome. So I have about probably 33 years of service, military, law enforcement, combat action, you know, multiple tours in Afghanistan, Iraq. I was undercover police officer. So I've done, I call it every low self-esteem job that anybody could do, any guy could do out there. And multiple injuries and explosions, and whether it was breaching or suicide bomber or concussions that took place over the years. And that, I mean, too many to list. I mean, again, 33 years of just, you know, just abuse to the body. But eventually the repeated concussions, whether it was in training or actually in combat or the explosions that I was in, eventually took its toll on me, my brain, mentally. And the traumatic brain injury, there's there's not a lot that can be done once you sustain that. There is some, I always say the name wrong, but it's the dive chamber. It's the same chamber they use for the diver if he gets the bends. That's an option. And there is some medication that they can put you on, but side effects of the medication actually increase suicide. So a lot of the, the treatment can be worse than the actual damage. So I mean, there's a long path of how I got there, and I had finding out that I had this injury, and then the PTSD that comes along with it. For me, the good thing is that Mission 22. I happen to be talking to a friend of mine who's really good friends who with the founder of Mission 22, and my friend he's a combat veteran, been around a really long time. He sensed something in my voice or the way I was acting or something that triggered him to know that, hey, something is not right right now. So he reached out to Mission 22, who reached out to me. They just cold called me, and I didn't know I needed help. That was ironic. I mean, I probably did, but I wasn't expecting to get a call with someone saying, hey, you need help. And Mission 22 got in touch with a place in Virginia called Boulder Crest Retreat, which is a retreat for military first responder veterans, their families, and they've revolutionized how PTSD, how that's treated. And eventually, again, there's such a long line of people waiting for this help. I had to get in line myself and wait, and eventually they had a cancellation. And several months after this initiated, I ended up at Boulder Crest Retreat with the help of Mission 22, and that completely changed my outlook with the PTSD and the TBI, and kind of working towards some type of closure or healing mentally. But the amount of time that it took me to get to that place mentally, physically, I had pretty much deteriorated to probably one of the worst states I've ever been, with weight gain and physical fitness. And somewhere in there, I just realized, hey, I've got to do something. And I've done every physical fitness work, if you name it, I've probably done it either in a unit I've been in or at a gym that I've been a member of, or every diet that's been out there. And I just kept coming back to this carnivore thing and seeing carnivore and a magazine called Carnivore, and a guy that I work with. I ran into him one day, and he was just ripped and shredded and looked in some of the best shape of his life. And he had been doing it. And I was like, it's definitely what I'm doing now is, bourbon and half an Oxycontin is not working. So I need to figure something out. And I just dove in head first. And, it's not a perfect journey. It's not perfect for anyone, but I have had, really, for me, the biggest thing that came out of it for me is that mental clarity and suppression of any of anxiety and depression. Of course, it doesn't go away completely, but it has really helped with, and I didn't realize that was a byproduct of it. I started feeling that way. And then I looked into it, and sure enough, it is actually many people have documented or spoken or written about depression, anxiety going away or being minimized, being on, that type of diet. For me, weight loss came easy the first month or so, and which was great. And now I've kind of leveled off. I'm kind of taking it. I'm adjusting. I'm going to adjust my fire a little bit and like up the fats and lower the protein and see if that works some. But I lost, a lot of weight, a lot of inches, got in really great shape. But for me, the big thing is just that mental clarity. And it's just an easy way of eating. I mean, it's just easy to have a steak. I mean, it's just like, it's probably the easiest way. It kind of, just sums it up. So I said a lot to get to a small place, but
I mean, I don't think people really understand. Oh, I lost you. You still there?
Yes, yeah, I just it dropped out. Sorry.
That's okay. The thing that I was going to say is I don't think people really understand how much our servicemen and officers go through and what that does to your nervous system, what that does to your body. I see
Right,
just average people, average citizens with PTSD, with all this anxiety and depression and these mental things, you know, but then to see someone who has actually been to combat and been overseas and been on these unimaginable situations, just the damage that that does to your brain and your nervous system. And my personal story, which I've been really open with about on my platforms, is that I'm in recovery from alcohol abuse,
right,
and I go to recovery meetings. Now they're all on Zoom, but for the last decade of my life I've been in person in these meetings. And one thing, it's an anonymous program, so we don't talk about who's in the rooms, but
right,
I would say that a good deal of people in those rooms are service people, who've been
sure,
overseas, who've been in combat, because they come back and they can't cope with life because
right,
they have a broken nervous system and a brain. And so they turn to the drugs, and they turn to the alcohol, they turn to those, and food. A lot of them are very, very unhealthy, smoking, drinking, drugs, because it's just their nervous system is trying to rebalance.
right, right,
Just trying to live, just trying to go out in public, be in the store. When you've been in those types of situations, and it breaks my heart because a lot of those men really have a hard time with sobriety,
right, sure,
with staying sober, because and I have seen a good many of them commit suicide, and it's absolutely tragic. And I don't think that we as a society acknowledge that enough, what you guys go through. Number one, when you're there, and then
right,
number two, when you come back, it's like
right,
everything just kind of like falls apart.
right,
And then you're talking about going into this program where you can get some help, and the wait that you have to,
right,
is kind of like, you have cancer, but you have to wait 6 months for chemo. Sorry, if you happen to make it,
right,
great, but you may not. You've got to kind of live with this cancer, this horrible state that your body is in.
right.
Um,
And
so,
the answer, the answer a lot of times is they throw meds at it, and
mhm,
that's really, I don't. I have to say that the Navy and the VA have taken care of me as much as they could,
yeah,
but the answer is throw meds at it,
yeah,
and that's and not, I guess I wouldn't say all of them do that, but mostly if you talk to veterans, that's the initial answer
mhm,
before you get to therapy. That's usually, you might hit therapy, and then by the somewhere in there in the first meeting, they're talking to you about, are you interested in taking meds?
yeah.
Um, and some people do, and that just falls right into, okay, so now they're not taking oxy from their friend. I joke about it, but this is how it goes. Someone who gets the knee replacement,
Oh, yeah.
they're done with their oxy, and then so now they're getting a prescription from a doctor or the VA, and then that becomes abused as well. So yes, yeah,
Those
it's
drugs are very, very addictive. And that was part of my story, is abusing the painkillers. I broke my tailbone. And then before I knew it, I was doing everything, beg, borrowing, stealing, to get more of those pills,
right,
because what they do to your brain, especially a damaged brain from, PTSD, is they fill a gap in there real fast.
right,
But then it creates more problems, and then that cycle of addiction starts.
right.
Um,
And I think that's one of the problems uh, with PTSD. A lot of people mistake that PTSD is, and some people have. For everybody, it's different. Number one, you could be right beside me; it could be different than my coping. But from what I see, the majority is not because they had to be violent or do violent things or kill people, or you know, it's that is easier to compartmentalize than coming home and trying to figure out how to be that person
Yeah.
in this world. So you come home and you shut the white picket fence behind you, and then you tie the cleats, and then you go to soccer practice as the soccer dad, and it's just really hard to make that change. And I see a lot of people, a lot of veterans, first responders as well, and now since I started Carnivore, Mike Foxtrot, I'm realizing that the second and third order victims are the families. So the wife and the children may never have gone to combat, but when they see the father or husband, then they start picking up these issues with, it's like their own and secondhand PTSD almost, and then they start coping with it. So anyway, I'm going down a bunch of rabbit trails, but the just PTSD is not what a lot of people, we put it in this box of, oh, he had to kill people, or he was violent, or his buddy was killed, and really that's such a small part. It's there's a scene in the movie, I can't read it's the bomb tech, and I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, it's a war movie from, I think it's Iraq. He's in Iraq, and he comes home on leave, and he has to go buy cereal. And
Mm,
the cereal aisle there's hundreds of choices,
mm,
and nothing is spoken in that scene. And probably to anyone watching it, they don't get it. But to most veterans, you see him go in this aisle, and he's just standing there like like he saw a ghost, just looking at all this cereal, and he almost can't even make a decision.
yeah.
And that, like, you can't even put it into words, but that sums up, like, how do you go from there to being in the cereal aisle and trying to pick which cereal, and yeah, it's very complicated, and there's so many layers to it. And a way to replace that feeling is with the drugs or alcohol or food or pornography or driving their car fast, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that becomes, that drug of addiction or that replacement.
Yeah, it's so sad. And, like I said, I don't feel like that this is a topic that we talk about as much. I think people would rather just brush it under the rug. But I've seen, just in my experience being in recovery, like I said, a lot of suicide, a lot of struggle, a lot of, and then the family also suffers. So it's
Right.
not just the one person, it's them coming home and their whole family, everybody. So it's a
Right.
lot. With regards to carnivore diet, when did you kind of start to notice the mental clarity, the benefits of eating like a meat-based diet?
Probably, it was pretty close into probably a month into it. Um, I just remember uh, not having the same, you know, depression, anxiety type feelings. And I wasn't sure, like, is this a result of the treatment or training that they call it, that I've had to kind of capture the thoughts and figure out what, how I'm feeling. And um but it was just clear to me that it was just the eating. Like, the eating just it almost made it go away. And then I just started reading the articles and looking up, and like, oh, this is a byproduct. And I don't know, it's one of those things where if it's a placebo, I'll take it because it's working. So I'm just going to claim that it is. But it definitely, I'd say like a month, probably a month in, and that's when I was like, wow, this is something is working here.
That's amazing. And I've done, because I have a similar story of, needing to be on different psychiatric medications since the age of 14. I've been hospitalized for depression as a teenager. And so I've heavily depended on those drugs to get me
Right.
through many times. But I have been off of everything for a couple of years, 2 years to be exact. I started meditating after
Right.
6 months of meditation. Then I decided to do the carnivore diet. So I think the combination of those things has kept me drug free, which is amazing. But there is a lot of science talking about the tyrosine,
Right.
those amino acids, the specific vitamins and nutrients that we can really only get from that red meat, and then the fat.
Right.
I do a high fat carnivore diet, and that has kind of made things even better
Right.
in regards to those neurological benefits.
Right.
So there's definitely science out there. I think as more and more of us kind of do this and eat this way, I think they're going to kind of be forced to add more.
Right.
And so yeah, absolutely, with the science for sure.
Right. And then the the however the body processes the grains. And I mean, I
Yeah.
know if I slip and have pretty much anything off, I can tell. Like I can feel it. And
Mhm.
um that you know I I guess there's several studies or articles that are in the works or have come out saying that those grains could be a lot of, you know, that could be triggering a lot of the problems, whether it's the joint pain or
Mhm.
the depression or um, just any number of things. I haven't. I'm so sold on I'm an all in, no exit strategy guy. So I read Sean Baker's book a little bit when I started, and then I just jumped in. It was easy, like nose to tail and ribeye, and just like it's just simple. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I think that's important too, is just to keep it simple, because we can slip into overcomplicating it. And if it's
right,
working for you, then, you know,
right,
keep going.
right.
Yeah.
I am making a slight. Like I said, I'm making a slight adjustment just because I think I want to start leaning out a little bit more. And I think for me, it was kind of odd. I kind of for like a month, I was doing like 4,000 calories of ribeye, and I would stay like the same. Um, and then I dropped to like 2,000 calories of chicken, and I kind of stayed the same. So I'm kind of figuring out that formula. I know
Yeah.
the body needs to reset. Initially, I think I dropped like 27 pounds and
Yeah.
like 5 inches, and just really felt good. Um, but I think the main thing, one of the things I wanted, like, I know I see like on forums, people's blanket answer
Oh,
is
yeah.
like, just eat 2 pounds of meat, just eat 2 pounds of meat. And it doesn't work that way,
Mhm.
that easy for everyone. So I think just like any type of plan, you got to figure out and tweak that formula to figure out what works exactly, for that individual. So
Yeah. Well,
I'm in
did
the
you
middle
feel
of trying.
different when you were eating the chicken versus the beef? Just curious.
Uh, I did. I craved more fat. Like I craved the beef.
Yeah.
Um, like I really like, and I usually didn't make it that long. I'd make it a couple days, and then I'd make the run for a ribeye steak and come back and have that steak. But yes, I could tell that I was craving. I was just craving more fat. Like I could tell that that's what I wanted. So yeah,
Yeah, I feel like if I try to eat chicken, I just get hungry.
right,
It doesn't do anything for me. I just feel hungry like an hour later. Like, did I
right.
eat? Like,
Did I even eat food? Right, right.
yeah, exactly. Cool. So what's like a typical day of eating for you right now?
Um, so I've done. I go with when I'm hungry.
Mhm.
I did. I was doing like the OMAD, the same one meal a day.
Mhm.
Um, and then I started trying to do with the shutdown. I started trying to do 2 a day workouts.
Mhm.
So then I kind of shifted to 2 meals a day. And now I'm back to just whenever I'm hungry. I just kind of eat when I'm hungry. But I used a macro calculator
Mhm.
and kind of calculated the macros to figure out exactly, kind of dial it in. And I just started that this week. Um, but before that, I just kind of was randomly, eating just whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And that can work, but I just wanted to dial it in a little bit more and find out exactly what I'm eating and figure out, now I think I'm in that stage of just dialing it into the best performance and feeling the best way possible.
Yeah. That's a good place to be. Once you
Yeah,
get, I think once you kind of, the depression and the stuff neurologically going on kind of gets calm, I think
right,
then you can kind of start playing around and looking at more aesthetic goals and figuring out what works best for you, for
Right.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
How is it with your family? Do they eat a lot of meat, or how do they feel about the way that you're eating? Did you get pushback?
No, I think, the biggest pushback is my 9-year-old son who goes to public school and has still learning the food pyramid. Like, I didn't even realize they're still teaching the food, or a rendition of the food pyramid.
Mm,
Um, and he said that I was eating unhealthy because I was eating too much red meat.
mm,
Um, I think everybody else in the house, even if they didn't approve, they know how bullheaded I am, that they just aren't going to say anything to me anyway. Um, but I do love to cook, so it's nothing like I'll cook a meal. We actually, with the COVID, we started ordering like a meal service that comes with everything ready to go.
mm.
So a lot of nights I'll cook that up, and it has vegetables and squash and sweet potatoes and chicken. So I'll cook that, but then on the side I'll cook myself a steak or whatever I'm gonna have. But it's not really an issue. I think we also are a family. We're so used to me deploying and being gone, and just being so flexible because of that lifestyle we've experienced with the way I lived, that we just kind of roll with it, and they roll with it. But my 9-year-old is not happy. He's not happy that
Mm,
all I eat is red meat, because he says I'm going to have a heart attack, or
mm,
because that's what the install from his public school
mm,
system has taught him. That but ironically, all he likes is meat. So
mm.
that's like, he doesn't even realize, he'll even say, when he was younger, one time he was asked, what do you want for dinner? And he said, I want steak. And his mom said, well, what do you want as a side? And he said, I want chicken. And so he eats very little vegetables. And even though he's still he's kind of trying to push me towards not eating so much meat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think more and more research will come out on this. I think we're definitely the first wave of people doing this way of eating and talking about it. And I've been doing blood work really the whole time, and just to kind of put it out there and say I'm fine, I'm doing good.
Right.
Um, that I think it'll become more and more accepted. Hopefully, we're not going
Right.
to have this plant-based agenda take over. But stories like yours, that you have a pretty tough situation that you have
Right.
been in. I mean, unimaginable, and you're seeing these types of benefits just mentally. With everyone talks about meat zen, and
Right.
for the average person, yeah, but for somebody who's had to overcome some serious mental hurdles and challenges, to say that it's helping you, I think that this story really needs to go out there, and we need to
Right.
drop the fear of meat and drop the fear of fat, and
Right.
um, that it could really potentially help a ton of people. I
Right. I
really do.
think
So.
I think one of the issues is the and I'm not concerned about it, but I don't understand it enough. I need to dive into it more. Is the whole cholesterol and how the blood
Mm,
work shows, and how even just I can only say standard doctor, because I don't think they're educated enough.
mm-mm.
A standard doctor who would read a blood test with elevated, I think LDL is typically the elevated blood work, when you're on a meat base. They're not going to understand that that's just what's in the blood system because
Right.
of the meats, and that it's healthy. And so I think that's I don't even know how to defend it really. And that is a fault of my own, as a, you know, uh, to push this movement forward. I really need to educate myself so I know how to defend it. But um, I know, even with, like, anyone who has confronted me, it's difficult unless you really know that as a science and how to defend it. So I
Yeah.
think that's something, and I can do that myself, but I think everybody needs to do that if you're going to try to defend it. Because when you look at, and I've been looking at a lot of forums, and you see people come back with their blood work,
Mm-hmm.
and I know enough to know that it matches what the studies show as good blood work. Now, I can't explain why that is, but I know that the person that posts these numbers, but that person, I can see it in their post, is freaking out about what their blood work says,
Oh,
even though
yeah.
they don't know. So that's, I think that's a big thing and I remember even before I was part of Carnivore and knew about Carnivore, I used to joke about, and I've heard other people, my great grandparents and my grandparents, how they ate, sausage and
Oh,
steaks and
yeah.
eggs and lived into their
Absolutely.
90s. And,
Yeah.
um, and, and like, it kind of all makes sense. Like,
Hmm.
because that's what they ate, they ate
Yeah.
from the farm and, the beef and the eggs. And,
Yeah,
so,
I
yeah.
think Ansel Keys, there's a couple of great documentaries out, the Fat documentary. There's a lot of people out talking about this. Dr. Nadir Ali is really
Mhm.
good about talking about cholesterol, but it's something I've had to educate myself on as well, because we were so incredibly brainwashed as a society because of this, basically this whole science study experiment done in the 60s by the guy named Ansel Keys, who demonized saturated fat. And
Right.
if you look into that study, it's complete crap.
Right.
He
And
cherry.
and backed by, sorry, I interrupted you,
Oh, no.
backed by someone who was paying, I don't remember the exact, but who was that paid for to get the results of that study to contribute to the sales of what products, or, which happens all the time, with that manipulation of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he just wanted to have a theory that made sense, and it's all crap. And the RDA for cholesterol, they quietly kind of withdrew that a number of years ago. However, the doctors still don't have the message. When I got my blood
Right.
work done in January, my cholesterol was like high. And my doctor was like, well, let's recheck in 6 months and then consider a statin. And I was like, oh, hell no. You're not going
Right.
to be
Right.
on a statin. But I did a video with Dr. Stephen Hussey, who's like a heart doctor. And he really talked in depth about cholesterol and how it's a good thing. Our hormones
Right.
are all made of cholesterol, and it's a good thing. We need to stop being afraid of fat and cholesterol. But there are so many, and that's the first thing people will say to me when they know how much fat that I eat, or how many eggs I eat, or how much meat I eat. Oh my God, your cholesterol. And it's like, that's actually not, you don't want low cholesterol. That's
Right.
not going
Right.
to help you, especially if you're prone to anxiety or depression or anything neurologically going on. You don't want low cholesterol. You want that cholesterol there to repair. It's something that's there to repair and help to heal your body. So I think we just have to keep educating people and keep putting our stories out there, because again, your story, I just want, I want to share it with everyone I know that has PTSD, everyone I know
Right.
that is struggling so hard mentally, that this is something that they may want to try out, that it
Right.
could really, really benefit them.
Well, and I think, I know you were talking about the alcohol too. I think that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks
Mhm.
for people going into this. That's another avenue. I don't even know how, I don't know how you would attack that, but a lot of people attempting to do carnivore are going to have issues, because they're going to want to drink. I know guys that, and I try to push that and say, hey, you should try this. Oh,
Mhm.
well, I want to drink beer. And
Yeah.
it's like, how committed do you want to do this or not? Like, do you want to, jump ship and find something that works? I did want to hit on to the number 22 for the veteran suicides, and that's kind of like, I appreciate that number. And of course, Mission 22, that's their name.
Mhm.
But a lot of the studies are showing that those numbers are actually much higher, because it's California and Texas, the two largest states that don't account for veteran suicides. They don't give those numbers out.
Mhm.
So the actual numbers of veteran suicide could be pushing 100 or over 100. because they don't have an accurate, the accurate data coming in for the suicide. So, and now, of course, it's spreading into the first responders, the police officers and firefighters and rescue, and then, like I said it earlier, the second and third order effects of the families. They're starting to see that now stretch into the families. So, almost on epidemic levels. And
Yes.
if anything that can help, and I definitely think that this, I know it's helped me, and I know there's plenty of people out there that you don't have to have PTSD from combat. You could it could be any type of, it could be car accident, it could be a parent that yelled at you, it could be any number of things that can trigger, it can be that trigger. So I like the memes that say, like, oh, when I was eating Pop Tarts and French fries, you didn't say anything, but now that I eat steak every day, you tell me I'm going to die. So I just think that kind of sums up the reaction to the carnivore way of eating. So
Yeah, it's an outdated, crappy way to look at things, that it's so
right,
common. My family is like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna die! Like, it's so bad for you." And when I tell them, like, you guys have seen me at the bottom, at the lowest of the low, and on 5 different medications that weren't working. They were not working. And now
right,
I'm on nothing, and I'm doing pretty good. And
right, right, right,
what,
right.
like,
It's
let's really talk about that.
right,
It doesn't, there's nothing else that really makes sense. What we eat absolutely affects us neurologically. It affects us physically, everything. And if it's something that can help someone, then we need to be talking about it. We need to put the message out there, because
right,
what you're talking about is a major crisis that I think a lot of people are not aware of. These veteran suicides, these numbers that are not being reported, in 2 of the largest states in our country, which is
right.
insane. I had no idea that that was even a thing. Um,
Yeah, and I don't think it's on purpose. I just think it has to do with the way they report,
mm,
and they just don't specify.
mm,
Uh, but yeah, it's yeah. I also think the battle is the install that that has been put into, whether it's my 9-year-old or people that are 50 years old. There's
right.
still that install of how they're educated with uh, what you should be or shouldn't be eating. And then there's also that you see the bandwagon of hate just to hate, like, and
Mm-hmm.
hate is a strong word, but whether it's, I know people that don't like Starbucks just because they don't like Starbucks. Like, they
Right.
don't
Oh,
like,
yeah.
but the coffee's good, but well, I just don't like Starbucks.
Right.
Or Dunkin' Donuts. You can pick any name or actor or anything, and a lot of times people just jump on that without any education or you know really any of the science or anything to back how they're emotionally responding to whatever their opinion is.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's so true. The people are just like, they get triggered. That's
Right, right,
that's like that's the nature of, stress. It's the nature of society. Everyone these days is walking around triggered.
right,
Um,
right. Looking for a reason to be upset or
yeah,
right,
yeah, Dr. Wayne Dyer, I'm a big fan of his. He said that there's some people that wake up every single day and look for something to be offended about. And
right,
it's just not a good way to live your life, at all. But that, unfortunately, is kind of what things have come to. So I always just try to keep putting positivity out there, putting a good message out there, encourage people to do meditation daily. That's
right,
something that helps me. And then what you eat, is so
right.
important.
what
Yeah.
what meditation do you like? I'm a TM guy. I like TM.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
So I do Vedic meditation, which is the same thing as transcendental meditation. It's
okay,
the same technique. Um, my teacher was a part of the organization and decided to leave, transcendental meditation, the organization, because
right,
TM
right, right,
is an organization. So
right, right,
he basically took the teachings of Maharishi and of the all the TM teachings informed Vedic meditation about 30 years ago. And so it's the same thing. So we do the same. It's 20 minutes twice a day. You have your mantra that your teacher gives to you. And that meditation literally has changed my life.
Game changer. Yes. Yeah. That's a whole other level. Like you could do a whole other podcast. I could sit with you for a whole other podcast on the TM or just the meditation, like game changer. I remember the first time that was part of when I went to Boulder Crest, part of the treatment is they teach you how to meditate. And I remember coming out of my first session with the teacher coach, and just busting into tears, like for no reason, just like hadn't felt emotion in so long, and like this it just drug it out. But anyway, I'm off track.
No, it's fine. I could talk about meditation like all day. I'm on track right now. I've started taking the coursework to become an initiator. That's my goal, is to eventually become an initiator. It takes a long time. You have to become pretty much a meditation master. I mean, you have to do thousands and thousands of hours of meditation. You have to do 108 days in India. Like it's an extensive process to become an initiator, but my goal is to eventually become an initiator, have a nonprofit so that I can teach people with PTSD the technique, for no charge, because it is expensive if you are just a regular person and you want to learn to work with an initiator. It's a process, and it costs money. So yeah, it's been so life-changing for me that I'm like, I really want to be able to offer this and form my nonprofit and do that.
And it's so simple. It's so simple. Like, it's just so simple. Like, until you do
the first time I did it, I was like, wait a minute, like, did that just happen? Because I haven't felt that relaxed in like forever.
Right, exactly, right. Like, how scammed? Did I get scammed here? It's too easy. Right.
I always tell people, I'm like, I've been a yoga teacher for a decade, and they teach you how to meditate, as a yoga teacher, sit up with your back straight and watch your breath and chase the thoughts out and all this stuff that like TM or what I call Vedic meditation.
Just let it come.
Oh, let it come in. Take it in. Get comfy. Like, let yourself get relaxed like you're watching Netflix. That's what my teacher says, is like, set yourself up like you're going to watch Netflix, get your body comfortable, and just do the deal. And it was like, wait a minute, I've been trying to like meditate for all these years to sit up straight with my legs crossed and my fingers this way and breathe a certain way, and was feeling like I was stapling my face to a wall, literally. And then I learned the technique, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what?
Right. Yeah. Too easy. Yeah.
It's awesome. So I'm so glad you have that as a.
Oh yeah. It's definitely, and like, you can't, like, you can tell people game changer, but if they're not in that realm and know what you're talking about, like, you still get the same way I looked at people. And even when I went to Boulder Crest, I was skeptical, but I was all in, as far as that was part of my agreement of going, was whatever they asked me to do, I'm going to be all in. And just, I had pretty much, for me, it was easy because I was at that place of surrender. Like, I had no other option other than like driving myself into a tree. Like, that's where I was at. So, so I completely surrendered and was like, whatever. But the very first session, like I say, I came out just crying and emotional, and like, what did I see? What did I feel? What was that? Like, I don't know what that, like, I want more of that. And it's so easy. And, so, and I notice, I actually am way behind. I haven't been up to date. So this has motivated me to probably go somewhere and do one real quick. But, so good stuff.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you were able to learn that. And I wish everyone meditate, but it's kind of one of those things, like you said, you have to get into the situation where you're in enough pain. I think carnivore diet is similar too, because, you were saying you talk to some people and they're like, I still want my beer and I still want to have like, it's like, as long as you still are comfortable drinking your beer and
Right.
you're comfortable, not meditating, I can't help
Right.
you. You have to get into a place where you're in enough pain and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm going to do this. Because, like you
Right.
said, it was like, I'm either going to drive into a tree
Right.
or I'm just going to do what they tell me to do, because
Right. Exactly.
it's
Right.
like the last house on the block,
Right.
it's like
And
this.
you can usually tell when you're talking to people. I use the example. I teach firearms, and people. I used to have this whole spiel about what gun they should buy, because people would come to me and like, "Hey, what handgun should I buy?" And I'm a big believer in a certain handgun, so I would have this. Oh well, this is. But I learned quickly over the years, not even that long, that they already have an agenda and idea of the sexy pistol that
Mm,
they want.
yeah.
And so I'm always like, oh, well, what do you want? And then, oh, I want this. Oh, then you should get that. Because I knew that it was just going to be this back and forth. And I think like carnivore, or probably meditation, is the same way. If someone initiates with an argument
Yeah.
against it, you're pretty much wasting your time. They're just, maybe that's a bad attitude to have, but
No,
my experience has been that they've already made up their mind. Again, they're not, like you said, their back is not against the wall, and they're not willing or desperate enough to, to give, anything. I think there's an inspirational, man, I can't remember his name, but he does these inspirational, like, uh, it's like a motivational, uh, like a video, and he splashes together all these different scenes, and he's very popular on YouTube. But one of them is, um, it's like a monk is teaching this fighter, and he takes him out into the ocean and is drowning him.
mm,
And at some point, right before the student's gonna drown, he pulls him out of the water, and he's like, why did you do that? And he said, basically, because I wanted you to see you have to want it as bad as you want to breathe,
mm,
and this is why you haven't been successful. And um, those are always really good to listen to when you're not in the middle of something hard. But
yeah.
they it's hard to pull that sometimes when you're like in the middle of something that really sucks. But yeah, you have sometimes you have to be in that place where
Mhm.
you just want it no matter what. Like, okay, I'll cut out, I'll do whatever. And
Yeah.
some people can come back from that, and some people can't. They go too far, and but yeah, so went down a rabbit trail. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean,
Yeah.
thing I was going to add to that is, like, somebody who's been in recovery and seen a lot of people go in and out, and myself kind of like, no, I don't really need to be here. We always say it's attraction and not promotion. And
Mm,
I think that as someone who meditates and someone who, is doing carnivore diet, I try to always come across that way of like, attraction, not promotion. I can sit here and
right.
promote and tell you
Mm,
how great it is, but if you don't want it, there's no point in it. So
right.
I always want to speak to the people out there who are ready, who are just at the end of their rope with whatever they've got going on in their life. And it's like, if it's a worthy inquiry, someone has a question and they're like, I really want to do this. Those are the people that I really want to get to, people
Right.
who are just like, I got nowhere else to go.
Right.
you know?
Right. Right. Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think too, there's like I've heard it over the like, and it amazes me, even as old as I am, that something is clear, like you heard it so many times over your life, and then it's clear to you. And for me, in this is the unhealthy relationship with food
Yeah.
that so many people have. And
Yeah.
so like you hear that, and really until you understand what that means, any fad diet or any diet that you do, you're always going to go back to that unhealthy place, whether it's Ben and Jerry's or alcohol. So until you get through all those layers. And I think the sad thing is, like, I'm realizing now, is for a lot of people that's a personal journey
Mm-hmm.
to come to that place, and they may never ever be able to do it on their own, or hear it from someone. So you really have to educate yourself. And uh you know I in my profession, I call it being a student of the profession. And really, this is something so serious. So many people are not a student of that profession, of their relationship with food and how they eat and how they work out, or but that's something that I discovered, in this carnivore journey, that I knew it, but I didn't discover it, if that makes sense. Like, I've
Oh
known it
yeah.
all my life. I had an unhealthy relationship, but I didn't discover that I had that on, and like, I could see it, like the scales had come off my eyes and I could see that. And that has helped me with, and I was the same way during my worst of my PTSD. I drank a lot, and that was like one of my places I would go, and it would, it's like, oh, I have bourbon and I have Ben and Jerry's, and oh,
Right.
let's combine the two, and oh, that's delicious, and it's like, what's better than, and so yeah, so it's just that those layers of discovery, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing. I think the attraction rather than promotion, because
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people are like, I'm not selling you anything, like,
Right.
other than t-shirts. I am selling them
Yes.
t-shirts, so they want
And I'll make sure I link those
yeah,
below the video, so because
um
I love my shirts, and I definitely
but
want everyone to be able to go buy those.
that was a horrible promotion. I'm sorry. I just
No,
hold
I
on. uh,
was.
but it's simple, and I think there's something to the meditation carnivore combo. Like, I just
Oh yeah.
thinking about that, right now.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah,
good
which is
stuff.
ironic because I went on a rounding retreat in Bali a year ago, and I don't know if they did. Have they taught you about rounding at all in TM? Do they do that? Talk about it?
No, so I only had, when you go through that program, you can go back. I have not been back. I am like basic 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know about the rounding, no, but I'd be
I'll
interested
send
to.
you. One of my teachers is actually doing a virtual rounding retreat, um, to do a week of rounding. Basically, the way they do it, it releases a year's worth of stress. I mean, it's
Hmm,
like I've done a few rounding retreats, and they have always kind of propelled me forward in my life. They're
okay.
amazing, and they release so much stress. They're very calming and settling to the nervous system. They're amazing. But I essentially did a week of rounding in Bali a year ago, and is a vegetarian retreat. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
So
So
you just did a fast? You did a
I
week?
did
No.
eggs all week because there was
Mm,
nothing else on retreat that I could eat. It was all
right,
vegetables and beans. And I knew if I ate that stuff, it was going to make me sick and it was going to make me feel bad. And like, how am I going to be able to even do the round? How am I
right,
going to do this stuff for 6 hours a day if I'm eating this stuff that's making me sick?
right,
So they were really sweet to me. They made me eggs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I had my jerky back in my room that I smuggled over there to Indonesia
right, right, right.
because you're not supposed to bring food over, but I smuggled a ton of beef jerky. So that's what I did, for that week. But I was like, yeah, the meditation and carnivore combo is so powerful because they're like, oh, don't eat meat and for the week of
Right,
rounding. And I'm like, oh, that's just not going to work for me.
right, 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 right.
Whenever I'm in
And
a
that is
that's
the
not going to fly for my retreats. We're going to have steak.
and knowing what the fat does with the brain, and
Yeah.
how like, it just seems like like that is an aspect missing, especially for the meditation,
Yeah.
for that clarity. I know. I don't, I guess I feel it more. I don't know if it's just like, I still do bulletproof coffee. I know some people call that dirty carnivore, but sometimes I'll do that. And that combination of the butter and MCT, man, I feel like I just want to go run next to my car, like as I'm driving it, but that could be the caffeine. I don't know.
It
Who
could be the
knows?
caffeine.
Oh,
Could be
right,
the
right. The
ketones.
combo. Right, right, right. But just that clarity, it just, for the meditation, I'm sure that increases,
Yeah.
the energy, and, the focus and everything that you're trying to do while you're meditating. So,
Oh yeah, it's such a great combo.
right,
Cool. Well, this has been really, really awesome. I'm gonna put below the video where people can find you, but is it at Carnivore Mike Foxtrot on
right,
Instagram?
right. And then
And then,
carnivore Mike. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I was just carnivoremikefoxtrot.com is a website.
Oh, good. Okay.
And I have, so I have two businesses. The one is the Carnivore Mike Foxtrot, and then I started another one. It's called Deadly Hands, Blood Money. It's like a military line. But my web creator got corona, and I haven't heard from him in a couple months. So I just combined those shirts. So there's some funny, like military style T-shirts on there too, if people are in that. Like E4 Mafia, which if you were in E4 Mafia, you know who you are. But they're just funny shirts and mugs. But the majority of it is all carnivore. And then I have a special shirt I'll talk to you about later that I'm going to show you once I finish the artwork. I think you'll think it's pretty cool. That'll be out soon. But the whole purpose is, you know, I'm just trying to give money back to Mission 22, Boulder Crest, and get more people into the system. I'm finding out though that as an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of money to get things running, and you get nickel and dime quite a bit. So my aspirations are to make $100,000 to donate to them. I don't know how long that's going to take me, but that's our goal, is to try to come up with $100,000 in donations or proceeds based off of any sales we make. And that's really the whole point, is just, when I was when I was waiting for help and my family was waiting for me to get help, there were points where like you really feel like nobody's coming for you. And you just felt like, hey, we're going to have to figure out a way to do this because nobody's coming to save us. And a lot of that was the wait and just the long line of people. And, everybody was trying to find a spot, but there's just so many people needing help to get into that position and get help. And then again, like I said at the beginning, there was a cancellation, and they were like, hey, can you come like in the next couple days or week or whatever it was? I don't remember specifically. And I was like, yeah, I'll be there. Like, I'll show up, I'll be there, like no matter what it takes. So anything we can do to try to help, the veterans and the first responders, and then also the families, which I'm finding, we never thought of like our family as as a casualty of it. But now that once I was in it, we realized, oh yeah, the entire family is a casualty of this. So, that who knows what the legacy of that will be as we go forward into the future. So that, something that needs to be started, we need to start looking at that now rather than later when it's a problem. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I can imagine it's like being told you have cancer and it's not good. You're in a bad place, but you're going to have to wait 6 months before you get any kind of treatment. So hopefully you don't die. It's just like you're just kind of screwed. So I love what you're doing, and I will do. I'll definitely link all that information below this video. So hopefully that will generate some activity there, and I'll do whatever I can to support you. It's very commendable, especially from everything that you've been through. I mean, I really, really commend you. And, thank you for being brave enough to share your story and to talk about these things. Cause I know that's difficult too, to actually just put yourself out there and say, hey, I was just really, really struggling,
Right.
And,
well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
I committed way back, and, that's the good thing about, and not just me, but a lot of people that come through this type of thing, were mission oriented. And so for me, when I was sick, I was like, it was when I get better, I'm going to come up with something to do. And really, this has become like, and you hear all the stories that, the people that start some type of mission like this, and it just becomes like their thing that they're doing to try to help out. So it's as therapeutic for me, as it is to try to help people. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and it's just a good thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for spending time with me today. And I know this is definitely going to help a lot of people.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.